Well, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock Mountain Time, so we're going to get started on time. Good afternoon and welcome to our monthly coffee break. My name is Brenda Mowbray. Today's topic is digital transformation in action. We hope you've grabbed your coffee, you're ready to sit back and get ready to learn how digital transformation can assist you and your business. In our April webinar, we touched on digital transformation. This month, we're going to expand on this and work through a couple of business scenarios. This will also include a product demonstration. We also have Jocelyn joining us, who's going to give a real-life example of how Acumatica and digital transformation assisted her in her role. I want to remind you that we're going to do monthly webinars. We also have a special webinar coming up in 2 weeks, and there'll be more information coming out on that shortly. Throughout this session, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat box. If we have time at the end, we'll get to those. If the time has run out, we'll get back to you on an individual basis. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to turn it over to Samantha.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome. To start, we're going to start with a recap of what digital transformation is. So it is using technology tools such as software or hardware to increase your company's efficiencies by at least a factor of 2. There are 3 mandatory and dependent components on digital transformation deployment, and that's people, processes, and of course, tools. So today we'll be covering off one of those tools and how Acumatica is a collaborative tool and the glue for every company that uses it, allowing that each and every department have real-time visibility of need to know and accurate information effortlessly. And we're going to start with our business scenario 1, a very common problem among a lot of distributors running Excel and manufacturers and QuickBooks. Company ABC has a process where orders are taken by the phone or by email, created, emailed for further processing internally, were then moved on to shipping, goes to get picked, and once sent out and confirmed, the shipment document is handed to accounting, where accounting at that point will generate the invoice. Very standard, but also very expensive, and here's why. People taking by orders by phone or email, you'll find multiple people placing orders for the same products throughout the day, which isn't a problem until we reach point 2. We don't have accurate inventory levels. Even with one person solely placing an order, the lack of accurate inventory causes delayed shipments as there's no product to ship once it is in the flow in the shipping department, even though the Excel sheet says that there are 3 on hand. In addition to this, if you promise an order to a client, say, 7 or 8 days out, but it turns out you don't have the inventory on hand, you're now faced with making a very awkward phone call or email to explain to that client why it will be delayed and as to when it will be arriving. Now, in addition to this, orders can also be lost, misplaced, or delayed as a result of the paper trail. Handing a piece of paper from order desk to shipping, walking it down to the accountant tends to often result in misplaced or even thrown out orders. Now, this is also the cost identified with this will depend as to where they are lost in the process. For instance, a common scenario is that when the order is in shipping, there is no way to actually identify whether or not that order has shipped until someone walks that document down to accounting, resulting in sometimes double shipments being sent out. And if accounting loses or misplaces that shipment, you now have an invoice for that item. So you've sent double of the product out and no invoice will ever get generated. And this is a very common scenario among many distributors and manufacturers. It's a lot of he said, she said with this, simply because order desk is asking shipping. Shipping must let accounting know what the status is. Accounting says they never got the confirmed shipment document. Shipping says, hey, yeah, you did, and the product was sent out 2 days ago. It's just ultimately a mess. So the solution that Steve's going to demonstrate with this workflow is dashboards. And we dove deeper into this in our last webinar, so be sure to check it out in more detail there, where this is going to be showing where the document is in its current state and the flow effortlessly. The second business scenario that we're going to cover off today will be more around replenishment. Now, of course, with no inventory on hand when a customer places an order, that's a need for replenishment. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper, particularly with regards to raw materials and manufacturing for production orders. How promising product to a client is one thing, but then it turns out you don't have the raw materials on hand to manufacture. So it tends to be problematic and ultimately slows your workflow for fulfilling orders because they take longer to ultimately receive the payment of the product you just sold. Now, in addition to this, the messenger aspect, walking down to purchasing to ask for more quantities, whether or not with unknown lead times, making fulfillment dates difficult to forecast to provide to your client, and ultimately the lack of risk of communication among departments as well. The risks, of course, are that orders are not fulfilled in a timely fashion. Lack of replenishment recommendations causes a problem when it comes to having the raw materials you require on hand. Also with minimum and safety stock considerations as well. It's again that whole he said, she said environment between different departments. Purchasing, hey, can you order this? 2 hours later, someone else finds out, hey, I need some of that too. I heard you're placing an order. Did you do that yet? Oh, can you order me some? Well, then accounting is asking 4 days later why that item isn't sitting in manufacturing or being manufactured. Shipping is later saying, hey, we've already sent that out 2 doors ago or 2 days ago, and then accounting doesn't know about it. It's ultimately the same mess. So in addition to this, knowing lead times from your vendors is also very helpful. Knowing how long it will take for you to receive a product, particularly with raw materials, allows your business to stay on top of the operations when it comes to production without having to worry or having that information sitting in someone's head that this particular vendor takes 8 days to ship. Now, if we throw a different curveball on this, being able to adjust them easily is just as important, those lead times, especially now during this COVID-19 pandemic. Let's say one of your vendors happened to email you and said orders will now take an additional week to fulfill for procurement of raw materials. You simply at that point log into the Acumatica system, go to the vendor at the temporary lead time in addition to what's already there sitting, at which point your system will update your replenishment information accordingly. So staying on top of your inventory eliminates having old inventory on hand that gets stale. It helps deliver lean operations by keeping only what you need, making your inventory turnover ultimately much better. So at this point, I'm actually just going to hand it over to Jocelyn, who is part of an implementation with Aqurus and Acumatica, and she's going to talk about her Acumatica experience with regards to her operations day to day, coming exactly from this Excel model. So take it away, Jocelyn.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me here. I completed an implementation with Aqurus last year and it was a really great experience. I worked for a company that was running all of their departments in silos. Our sales team was really disconnected from our operations team. Our operations team was blind to inventory levels on numerous fronts and our account day transactions. So it was completely impossible to run an effective supply chain. We turned to Acumatica to help resolve some of these issues. And I could probably talk all day about the areas that were transformed by this ERP, but I want to focus on two main ones today that had significant impacts to our company. The first is the biggest issue that we had was that our sales team took orders over the phone or by email. They would then forward those orders onto our shipping team, completely bypassing anyone within the supply chain. So that has had a huge impact on demand planning, but I'm not going to get into that. The shipping team would then print the email, pick the order, and ship it. They would walk that email to accounting and notify them that they could invoice the customer. I'm betting you can see probably more than one or two areas where this process can fall down. First off, our orders would come in and the sales team had really no idea if the inventory was on hand or available. Secondly, we had orders collecting in an inbox that was also being populated with day-to-day emails, and in 2020, likely there's very few people receiving under 30 emails a day, I would bet. So we had orders that were being missed and certainly not seen in a timely manner. Thirdly, we had a department of 2 people where one person would pick the order and there was no indication that that order was started, picked fully, or put on back order. So we had there were times where multiple orders were picked multiple times, which our customers really didn't enjoy that. Back orders were certainly never tracked or fulfilled. And because the sales team had no visibility into orders or the status of them, they were constantly following up. So that's an inefficient use of everyone's time. Now, after all that confusion, if the shipping team forgot to bring the email to accounting, then the customers were not billed either, which is problematic to keep a company moving, obviously. So with the features that Steve's going to show you shortly, we were able to track all of our open sales orders, open back orders as well. Our orders could be picked only once. Everyone had sightline into when those things were happening. Accounting also would receive live notices on their dashboards when the orders were physically left the building, and they could bill them immediately. So I'll let Steve give you an example of this with his demo now.
Great. Thank you very much, Jocelyn. So where I'm going to start with this now is basically following up on the same items that Samantha and Jocelyn have mentioned, is the creation of a sales order and being able to follow the flow and being able to know what your inventory levels are. So something simple, I have a warehouse manager dashboard that I've come into, but I can click onto a new sales order and I'm going to create a new one from my sales team. So my sales order comes in, I can select a customer simply by starting to type their name, and it populates the name. I can then say, what are they purchasing? New laptop requirements. They're looking to buy laptops from us. So I can add that information in. And when I simply go down to my grid, I can do the same thing in my grid as I did with my customer. I'm looking for laptops. So as soon as I start typing, I get to see the names pop up. And there's what I'm looking for, is my Acer laptop. When I look at these now, I can put in a quantity and they need 15. So the system has gone out, found out that their selling price to this customer is $500 per laptop, but it's giving me a warning on my quantity, telling me that the warehouse quantity will go negative. What that's telling me is that I don't have enough quantity available. And you'll notice in the bottom of my screen, it shows on hand 10, available 10, which means the ordering of the 15 is not going to be able to ship all of them because I do not have enough on hand at that location. From the salesperson's point of view, they can let the customer know immediately that there may be a delay, that they have to order these because they're short on them. And they can ask the simple question, would you like them shipped all at once, or would you like to have the 10 that we have now and the other 5 later? So once they've gone through and set this up, all they have to do is hit save. The system has now put this out as a sales order that's ready to be fulfilled. If I simply click back to my warehouse manager's dashboard, what we'll see is their open sales order dashboard has been updated. So there's a new sales order 5442 for active staffing. There's my new laptop requirements. And my warehouse manager has the choice now to go through and process this. Simply by clicking on the hyperlink of the sales order, they can reopen the sales order. They can see a number of things in the system now to determine what they would like to do. First, if you click onto your warehouse, I can click on the drop down and we'll see that in the retail warehouse, there's only 10 available, but my wholesale warehouse across the country has 1,300. I could just simply do a transfer and transfer those items across. So by going up to actions and saying create transfer order, I could create a transfer order that transferred those items from one place to another, and then I could send them off to my customer. The other option for this is I could purchase this. I could send this out and do a purchase order direct. So as I scroll across, there's a checkbox that's on the far side over here that says mark for purchase order. If I select mark for purchase order and go back up to my actions, I can click the one above that says create purchase order. And what this will do is this will go out and create a purchase order for these items. And so now here's my item. It tells me I need 15. I don't have to buy all 15 if I don't want to. I could just buy 5. So I could click this, turn this on, and I could override and I could change my quantity if I needed to and override it. And I would just simply be able to create process, and it would generate a purchase order for me. In this case, I'm not going to generate that purchase order yet. What I wanted to do is reopen the sales order. I'm going to ship them the 10 that I have here by simply going up to my actions and saying create shipment at the very top. The system asks me to confirm the shipment date and the warehouse that I'm shipping from. I can say okay. So by looking at these now, I can also take a look at what my lead times are simply by clicking on the inventory ID. This opens up my stock item. And if I stretch out my item here, I get to see all the details of my item, including things like my vendor details. These are the 5 vendors that I typically buy this item from, and you'll see that they have lead times of 15, 10, 20, and additional lead time days based on different things. So what this is telling me is that if I order from Eastcom Electronics, I have a 15-day lead time, but for this specific item, I have 2 additional lead time days. The really nice thing about this is my typical information. If I created a purchase order, the system would automatically tell me that the day the purchase order is today, but I won't receive that item until for 17 days from today. And it lets me know so I can let my customer know what their delay is. One of the things that Samantha mentioned about changing lead times is simply clicking onto my vendor. And you'll notice that I'm clicking onto the blue hyperlinks and different screens are popping open. So when I open up one of these now, my vendor screen opens and I can click over to my purchasing and you'll see there's my lead time. If I know my lead time for this COVID pandemic that's going on has been changed to 20 days, I can simply click on that, save and close. And when this screen for my Acer laptop refreshes, it shows now I have a lead time of 20 days. It's done that throughout the system anywhere that on any item that you're purchasing from that supplier. Right, so this gives us a little bit of flexibility on and tracking of what we're looking for. All right, and at this point, I'm going to stop. I'm going to hand it back to Jocelyn for just a moment, and we're going to talk about the implications of items when you're not purchasing or transferring, and what happens when you are producing the items, manufacturing them.
Thank you, Steve. So our second biggest downfall was definitely inventory levels. We had no live tracking of our inventory, be it finished goods or raw materials. And when orders would come in, it was a guessing game for our teams if they could even be fulfilled. And we certainly lost a lot of customer orders because we didn't have a way of telling them how long it would be until a product was back in stock. On the manufacturing side, we would schedule the build of a product, and it wasn't until we were physically pulling the material for that build from the shelves that we would learn we didn't actually have the raw hands-on part to execute it. So the MRP module of Acumatica turned that around for us. We had reports we could run on our finished good inventory in so many different ways. We could create production orders directly from sales orders. We could issue purchase orders for raw materials that were shorts based on the minimum quantities and lead times that Samantha touched on. And the planning side of things really made our company, our proactive approach turn to we made our company have a proactive approach instead of the reactionary style that we'd been practicing for 10 years. So Steve's going to kind of show you some of those different features now, but it was certainly a very positive impact for our company.
Yes, so the next part of that would be creating a sales order. The same idea, if I did another sales order for an item that is not purchased, it's manufactured, I would be able to come in. I'm going to do the same idea, ABC Holdings this time. I'll use them as my customer, and they're purchasing something that we manufacture, new shower kits. And when I go down to my list, I can say new shower kits, and there's my inventory item. Again, now at the bottom of my screen, it shows my on hand is 0, so I have none available. This customer wants to order 10. I can put in a selling price for it, and now my information says, here's my sales order, and I can save. So as Jocelyn mentioned, you can create a production order directly from a sales order. One of the things is I've got it at this moment way off to the far side, but off to the far right, similar to the mark for purchase order but checkbox that we have, there's a mark for production. And that mark for production checkbox is defaulted on in this case, because this is an item that we only build as needed for the customer. So the mark for production is turned on. All I need to do now is go up to my actions, and there's an option at the bottom for production orders. I can click on the production order. There's my item. I want to build a production order for 10, and I can say create. The system now goes out and it's creating a production order to build the 10 specifically for this sales order. The other nice benefit to this is the production order is referenced back to this sales order. So when the production items hit inventory, they're not available for anybody else to take and sell to someone else. They're specifically tied to this sales order. So I can now just click on my production order. My production order opens. I can see that it's 10. My constraint date is May 21st, which is today, which means the system is telling me I can start it today, and technically I can finish 10 of them in one day. All I need to do now is take it out of a plan status, so I can go up to actions and release, and now my production order is in the system. Even before I did that, I have a number of options that are available. So the one that I wanted to touch on today is critical materials. As Jocelyn had mentioned that they had encountered previously was they would get a production order, and until they went to start pulling items, raw materials, they wouldn't know that they were going to be short on any of those items. The nice thing about the production orders is once you have a production order created, the list of required items is populated in the system, and by going to the critical materials, this shows me that I need a shower tray, and I need 10 of them. I have 0 on hand. I'm short. My source says manufacturing, so I could, from here, I could simply click the checkbox on the row and click manufacture, and it would create a manufacturing production order for this as well. The other option is I could decide I want to buy this. So I could click the checkbox, hit the purchase option at the top, and the system would create a purchase order. And you'll see there's a transfer option there as well. So this gives me the ability to see, as soon as I want to start producing something, or I'm planning to produce, I can always see, do I have the required raw materials that I'm going to need? And you can see numbers off to the right that say quantity that are hard available, some that are, if there's already a production order or a purchase order generated for those items, you would be able to see that those items were on their way. So I can leave that now. And so what we've done is we've reviewed the production order, and I can see all of the details, and this is now tied to my sales order. And now I don't have to worry about this anymore. What happens now is when the sales order or the production order is completed and the items are put into stock, this production order will show up on my dashboard as having stock available, and I will be able to generate a shipment for it and send it out the door. I think that's it for now. One of the things that we wanted to mention or talk about was Brenda mentioned at the beginning that we're going to be having a special webinar in a few weeks that's specifically related around manufacturing. And we will go a little deeper into manufacturing, workstations, capacity planning, all of those different things as well. So if anybody's interested, be sure to sign up for our next webinar coming up in 2 weeks.